Hello and welcome to the entertainment episode of the International Society of Explosive Engineers web series Explosives Every Day, where we look at how explosives are used in a variety of applications. My name's Alistair Torrance and I'm the President of the International Society of Explosive Engineers. Our organisation started in 1974 when a group of like-minded people got together in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to discuss how to better apply commercial explosives and how to champion the blaster in the field. Move forward to today and we're an international organisation with more than 4,000 members spread over 90 countries with a mission to advance the science and art of explosive engineering worldwide. We do this through sharing our knowledge and providing training and education for everyone involved with blasting. We also have a strong education foundation and have awarded more than $1 million in scholarships to our students in our industry. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our series partners, Dyno Nobel, Opit Blast and LDE Global. This series would not have been possible without their tremendous support. So this episode features how explosives are used in the entertainment industry. We'll take a look at how explosives are used every day in fireworks displays, movies and TV shows, and in concerts and other live events. Our entertainment sponsor is Texel. Here's a little bit more about them.
Texel specializes in providing managed environmental monitoring services in noise, vibration, dust and weather, as well as equipment to ensure clients in the mining, construction, and infrastructure sectors meet their compliance and data collection objectives. These services are tailored for short or long-term turnkey solutions that manage everything from all installation, data collection, and calibration to data reporting requirements. Texel, environmental monitoring made easy.
This episode's presenters are Mark Johnson of J&M Displays, Tassilo Baur of the FX Department, and Amanda McLean Nixon of Pyroam, Inc. So Mark Johnson is the Vice President of J&M Displays and has more than 30 years of experience working in many facets of the entertainment pyrotechnics industry. He works closely with factories in China, Europe and the USA that produce pyrotechnics and fireworks, and designs many of the fireworks that J&M Displays uses in their productions across the country. He's going to be sharing his experiences in this area and also the history of fireworks. Tassilo Baur is a long-time ISEE member and owns the FX Department in Hollywood, California, and is the special effects supervisor for movies and TVs. He has over 40 decades of experience and will give us a behind-the-scenes look at how explosives and special effects are used in your favourite action movies. Amanda McLean Nixon is the former CEO of Lunatech Pyrotechnik in Germany, distributing theatrical pyrotechnic supplies and providing show services in Europe. And she's also the former CEO of Lunatech Inc., which manufactured theatrical and specialty pyrotechnics. Currently, she's CEO of Pyroam, which provides pyrotechnic materials to the proximate pyro industry and provides show services. She's going to present how proximate pyrotechnics are used and the difference between these pyros and the ones we see in large open-air displays. It's going to be a question and answer session with the presenters right after this presentations. The panel will discuss many questions that were asked by a live audience at the time of this episode's first airing. So grab some popcorn and get comfortable as we learn more about how explosives are used in the entertainment industry.
Fireworks origin. So, although the origin may be disputed, crude gunpowder was being used by the Chinese alchemists around 600 AD, with a basis of potassium nitrate, sulfur, charcoal, loaded into hollow bamboo, or later into stiff paper cartridges. By the 10th or 12th century, the military in China were using timed bombs, actually, and fireworks attached to arrows in warfare, as they were able to expand on the different effects and the different aerial shells and fountains, which are a gerb of fountains, a spray of sparks from the ground up. As all these kind of things expanded, so did the use of it, and then, of course, fireworks displays started becoming commissioned for royal milestones such as coronations, weddings. All these royal events were occasions to celebrate with fireworks. And then, as things were progressing, the settlers actually brought fireworks with them, the technology, to the United States. And some of these celebrations then started to use fireworks on a routine basis. And at this time, keep in mind, everything was very rudimentary, black powder based. The only sparks they were really getting were from crude iron, like powdered iron and iron shavings. So everything was gold, amber, orange colored, charcoal colored. It was until the 1830s in Italy where they started experimenting with using some metal salts. Now you're starting to get colors into it, your reds, greens, using different chemicals in here, compounds in here, to get the colors that is really the beginning of where we think of fireworks colors today. And so now you've got the timing mechanism figured out so that the shells burst in the air, and you've got colored bursts. So by the 1830s, that's the beginning of the modern fireworks displays. John Adams' letter that he wrote, "The day will be most memorable in the history of America," meaning July 4th. "I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, bonfires and illuminations, from one end of this continent to the other." So that's the phrase that started fireworks celebrating in 1776. So that was the first July 4th fireworks propaganda, if you will.
At the end of a display, you may see a lot of aerial shells breaking in the sky in quick, rapid succession. A lot of times that's done with a finale chain. A finale chain is just that. It's a chain of fireworks that are fused together for rapid fire. So as you can see, all of these aerial shells have a fuse that runs across the top that connects them all. So this chain will be loaded one by one into mortars that are in a finale rack. The first shell is ignited on the top of the chain, and it goes in succession, shell after shell after shell in rapid fire. A display cake is like an aerial shell, but in a smaller form. So each one of these would consider like a mortar for a display rack, but instead of a rack, they're grouped together into a bundle. We call this a cake or a barrage. With the electric igniter, the fuse goes in and it will go into the first tube. The first tube does its effect. There'll be a jumper fuse over the next tube, and it goes in succession, row after row after row. Also, with the aerial shells, there is a hand fire portion available. We still have some displays that are hand fired. And this is what's called a safety cap. This is the black powder fuse that runs inside the paper piping here. It burns about 3 seconds per inch when it's outside, and when it reaches the paper piping, it's about 60 feet per second. Flare and ignites the fuse. It burns slow till it reaches this point, and then it's almost instantaneous as it goes in and launches the shell. So I mentioned electronic firing, and I thought I would show a couple of the panels here. This is a 400 shot panel by Delcor Industries. Sam Bass made these. Here is a 100 shot version from the same manufacturer. Move to different areas. Here's another firing system. This is a 900 shot, even though it only has 15 switches. And then here is Cobra system, which is all wireless. So this is one of the most popular systems in use. Of course, we have all the safety helmets and eye protection and extinguishers. So you have to have a place to put everything. So you can imagine there's a lot of work that's put in all year long with selling the show. You need to go and do a site visit to the show to make sure that the venue can have fireworks, and if they can, what's the distances to the nearest building, the nearest exposure. Then you go back and you design the show for that venue, for the budget, and do they want a half an hour show, or do they want a 5-minute show, or anywhere in between? And then you design the show for the customer's needs. Then it goes to our pack house. We pack the show according to script. Maybe it's scripted to music. It could be in conjunction with radio station or other media. So it could be choreographed to music. And then we load them all into the trucks with the equipment and go shoot the show. So what happens on the day? You're a crew member and you show up to the site and the truck pulls up, door rolls up, and this is what you see. Everybody grabs the mortars. They have a map of placement. Everyone starts putting the mortars into place. They start affixing them with brackets, clamps, nails, screws, however the type of rack dictates how you're going to set them up. And then once the racks are all set up, then comes the fireworks setup. So the boxes of fireworks get brought out. You start sorting those out. If it's a choreographed display, there's a very specific place that each firework has to go. If it's a fire at will display, then you're going to just load according to diameter. And when I say diameter, you'll notice some of these mortars are going to be larger or smaller than the other ones. So we measure display fireworks in inches, and the inches are of the diameter, not the actual firework itself, because the firework has to fit loosely in the mortar. So everybody has got the fireworks dropped into the mortars. At the same time, they're going to be wiring up an electric igniter into the firework and into the firing device. Maybe it's a wireless, it could be rails and cables, a little bit more old school. And once all of that's wired up and hooked up, then you'd run continuity tests to make sure if there's anything you need to rewire, you can get that straightened out before the display. Right now, you're getting jittery and nervous because once the allotted time comes, your display has to go on and there's no second chances.
I'm Tassilo Baur, and for over 4 decades, I've been a special effects supervisor for movies and television, an author, consultant, educator, researcher, on special effects related technology and safety, with an extensive background in manufacturing. I'm based in Los Angeles, but as is common in our field, I've been lucky enough to work all over the world. On behalf of myself and my company, the FX Department, I'd like to thank you for your interest in explosives use in motion picture and television production. Even though I'm not a blaster, I am an enthusiastic member of the International Society of Explosives Engineers. ISEE is a great organization, not only for conventional blasting in general, but for specialized explosives users such as myself. I just got my 30-year pin not long ago, and I'm grateful to ISEE for this opportunity to explain our part of the explosives engineering spectrum. I'm going to try to explain to you what movie and television and streaming media special effects is and how explosive use figures into it, and most importantly, what it isn't. But first I'd like to show you some examples, both for discussion and comment during the Q&A session, and to give you an overview. As you can see from the clips, special effects is a very broad and diverse field. So, what is special effects? That's a very complex topic. But to put it simply, special effects is creating illusions that help tell a story. Those illusions have to work in the unique and demanding motion picture television production environment. So that generally means they have to be simulations of real events. In other words, they have to be faked, but in such a way that they look better and have more visual impact than the real thing would. And that's the challenge. As I like to say, things have to be fake enough to be safe, but real enough to be totally cool. And that's the essence of our job. Explosives use is a small part of that. Even in creating illusions of explosions, generally they're only used when mechanical actuation, compressed gas, or some other technique isn't suitable. Explosives are often just the finishing touch or the icing on the cake, even in situations like that. But in those cases where they are the right choice, there's nothing better. So let's talk about what special effects isn't. Special effects, simply put, isn't blasting. It isn't just blowing something up and pointing a camera at it. As Ralph Burnham and Kelly Ratliff of Reminger Law Firm said in the previous reporting video, the detonation of blasting explosives is not like it's portrayed in the movies. And there's a good reason for that. Fortunately, we have many other tools at our disposal, including editing, sound, camera angle, and so forth, to make even a very mild explosion appear to be spectacular in the context of a production. If you look at the clips in the reporting video that my buddy Joe Meyer posted, you'll see that the sound is actually rather unspectacular while the visuals are great. That's a common technique we use to create a maximum visual impact in the presentation that people see in the finished film, while not breaking windows and causing problems on location. That's because the raw footage shots, which haven't had the sound added in post-production, and they're aimed at creating a visual illusion using minimal explosive force. We also have the huge advantage that we can make our bed before we have to lie in it. If your job is to break up a bunch of rocks, then you really have to break up rocks. Fortunately, we don't have that problem. We can frequently substitute some alternative material for what appears to be the real thing and is much easier and safer to blow up. This includes breakaway materials such as balsa wood, foam plastic, breakaway glass, which have the advantage of being lightweight and produce relatively unproblematic fragments. That's exactly our approach. Maximum bark with minimum bite. There really is no such thing as a usual day in special effects because what we do is so unusual. That having been said, a great deal of what we do is planning, preparation, and building for the actual effect, given that so much relies on it. This involves coordinating with many other entities, including the prop department, set dressing, costumes, wardrobe, the location department, production department, and of course the authorities having jurisdiction. So in summary, I think the future is bright for special effects. We're in a new golden age of production. People love movies, whether they see them in the theater, at their homes, or streaming media over their phones. People also love illusions in those movies, and that's what we're good at. When used safely and appropriately, explosives have always been and will continue to be an effective tool for creating those illusions. So stay safe, keep your powder dry, and see you at the movies.
Hi, my name is Amanda McLean Nixon, and I have worked in theatrical pyrotechnics since its start in the late 70s. I've worked in many different aspects of theatrical specialty pyrotechnics such as manufacturing, as a pyrotechnician, and I've also worked in sales and administration. Theatrical pyrotechnics are quite different from consumer fireworks the public can purchase in some states, aerial fireworks displays, and movie special effects. Theatrical pyrotechnics, which are manufactured specifically for situations where the audience is located quite close to the effects, are sometimes referred to as proximate pyrotechnics. These can be used indoors or out and can be seen in theater plays, concerts, sporting events, ballet, advertising, wrestling, air show stunts, corporate events, weddings, amusement parks, or about any place you can get a permit to use them. High-quality proximate products are often manufactured in the USA under strict safety standards, using premium ingredients, refined to exacting particle sizes. Consumer fireworks, although also classified as explosive hazard class UN 1.4, simply are not made to these standards. The finished products are tightly controlled for performance guidelines such as burn duration, height, and spark fallout. Color formulations are usually tightly held proprietary secrets. Proximate pyrotechnics are usually ignited by an electric match or an igniter and fired with controllers that can be programmed to follow a soundtrack or internal clock. In live performances, pyrotechnics can also be fired manually with electronic firing systems. A pyrotechnician must be well acquainted with the products he or she uses in order to select the correct product for a specific venue. Most trained aerial pyrotechnicians simply cannot understand the difference that 6 inches of safety distance can make. They are not used to working so closely with people in such confined environments with potentially flammable objects nearby. They are not used to being part of the show, working closely with other technical departments, which is a big part of theatrical proximate pyro. Different pyro parts of a stage design must be installed timely during setup, depending on other technical components. Simply, proximate pyrotechnics are unique and require exacting practice and experience that's best learned from a licensed mentor. In the past, cell phones were not around to document a lot of these live events, and the entertainers were very proprietorial of any photos that included parts of their shows. The quality of photos taken back then was not good, and the video even worse. One of the oldest photos I can find is from a show I did in Barcelona, Spain on the Tina Turner World Tour in 1990. This photo shows 10-second by 12 feet high silver gerbs made by my old company Lunatech along the front and top of the stage. You notice the equal height and the burn duration also was the same. This is what you might know as a fountain in consumer fireworks, but these Prox gerbs are manufactured with finer chemical particle sizes and pressed on a hydraulic press in many thin increment layers. Proximate pyrotechnics are mostly manufactured also with an electric igniter so that you can fire it electrically. Gerbs are made in a variety of burn durations and heights, so you may choose the size best for the safety distance you have available. You will notice that we have here a photo from some small silver gerbs from the company RES. These are in a V shape, and this was used in a convention center. Gerbs can be used in a variety of holders which form different shapes. You can see some very large silver gerbs in a fan shape, and these are used in an arena. Using electric motors for rotation, here are some gerbs in a spinner from the 1980s. Gerbs can also be made to be very quick, such as a jet. The quicker the burn duration, the less fallout occurs, and the safer an effect is. Smokeless powder with a variety of flame colorants has been used for pyrotechnic flame effects, although the last year more and more technicians are moving towards propane gas effects, which can be fired many times without reloading. And you will see that if you go to a Trans-Siberian Orchestra show, they use a tremendous amount of these gas installations. Unfortunately, not all venues will approve the use of these gas effects. A great deal of approximate pyrotechnician's job is connected with the rigging of effects overhead. Sometimes this is on a lighting truss structure or a catwalk or very high in arena off light stands. One of my favorite photos is from the Olympics in Russia. This photo is of gold twinkling waterfalls, and this is made by the company Ultratech, which is also another USA manufacturer. Waterfalls are specially pressed gerbs that are hung upside down to let the sparks flow downwards. My business partner, Tom DeWilly, designed these particular waterfall gerbs originally. It's such a stunning photo. Colors are becoming more prominent as technology permits. Here are some lovely smokes from the firm Lemaitre. Lemaitre manufactures in the UK. Ultratech also manufactures a product line named Angel Fire. This technology came from a experiment, it's a side effect from R&D that was done at Los Alamos by some explosive PhDs. The composition in the Angel Fire line is nitrocellulose based, which reduces smoke, and the proprietary compositions they have provide beautiful, intense, jewel-colored effects, which are quite stunning. Also, here are some mines from the firm Ultratech. Next Effects is another high-quality U.S. manufacturer. Here is a photo with comets and airburst hung from the lighting truss above. Next, you'll see a photo from the company Next Effects of gold glitter mines. The following photo is also from Next Effects, and these are a waterfall effect. Something new on the horizon is the use of spark-producing machines. These simply burn metals, creating sparks, which are blown up into the air. Although these machines are referred to as cold spark, these sparks can be a fire hazard when used improperly. These were invented to replace gerbs. I think that going forward, the next evolutionary step for approximate pyrotechnics will be cleaner compositions with less smoke, less fallout, and the further reduction of any potentially toxic byproducts. That is where the industry is headed. I am beginning to see some stirrings and getting bid requests, so I hope this summer things will be returning to normal as we can all meet in public events and enjoy shows of all kinds and sporting events.
I think everyone gets a kick out of seeing all those hugely visual effects that are used on a daily basis. Our question and answer session with moderator Travis Davidsaver, ISEE board member and emerging professionals section chairperson, begins now.
All right. Well, thanks, Alistair, and thanks again to all of our sponsors for their financial support. Without them, we would not have been able to bring this free series to you. Now let's talk live with our panelists. Mark, who's in Iowa, Taz and Amanda, who are in California, and they're excited and ready to answer your questions about how explosives are used in the entertainment industry. We're excited to have so many of you on from around the world today. So for the session, so when you ask your question, let us know where you're from. And if you have the question for a specific panelist, let us know which one, and we'll be sure to direct it that way. Again, please send any of your questions in via the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can. Our first question is for Mark, and it comes from Evan in Kentucky. Mark, at what age are people interested in joining a fireworks crew allowed to apply?
Well, the U.S. Requires you to be 18 years minimum to actually work with other licensed individuals. To actually have possession, then you're going to have to be 21 years old to, say, drive your truck with explosives to the show.
Okay, so Mark, how many new people do you bring on each year?
Gosh, I wish I had that answer. Not enough. I would say it's maybe 5 to 10% per year new. Many people just fire one time a year on the 4th of July. And then, of course, there are some people that are the weekend warriors that they may shoot 3 to 5 weekends a year.
Okay. Amanda, how does that compare to the stage pyrotechnic business?
You mean how many new people come on every year?
Yeah, both. How many new people come on, and what age do you need to be able to do this?
Well, I would say the best would be 21. I wouldn't hire anyone younger than 21. And it's rather difficult to get on with theatrical pyrotechnics. It's probably easier to get on with aerial fireworks with Mark.
There's probably a lot more aerial firework displays than there are stage pyrotechnic shows as well.
Many more displays, yes. We can only fire as many displays as we have crew to support.
All right. Well, our next question is for Taz, and it comes from Doi Handoyo, who's in Indonesia. And he's asking, when you're doing work on set and you're designing the delays for the shot, are you using electronic detonators?
No, that's an interesting topic that comes up periodically. People think we have all this sophisticated electronic equipment, and you might be surprised to find that most of the coolest effects you would see in movies are still fired off old-fashioned nail boards by hand. There are two reasons for that. One is safety-wise. The problem with a preset detonator delay is you can't turn it off. And if something changes, goes wrong, the actors don't go where they're intended to, you have to sit back and watch the disaster happen. And that's completely unacceptable. We have to be able to interrupt it at any time. That, and there's the creative part of it, where you want to be watching the scene as it unfolds and adjust the timing on the fly to suit whatever the action is. So no, we don't use electronic detonators unless they're part of, say, a demolition or something where we're just adding fireballs or something cool to it, where the demolition itself requires them.
Okay. Amanda, on the stage pyrotechnics show, how much of yours is manual initiation versus electronic initiation that's pre-planned?
Well, all of mine is electronic initiation, and it's not Well, it's all pre-planned, but it's not programmed usually. Usually we're shooting manually off an electronic controller.
So if I would imagine if there's a delay in the production, you can accommodate for that by waiting to let that display effect happen.
Sometimes the band will come out, if you're working with bands, and they'll say, oh, we're changing the song list tonight. We're doing it in this order. And you're like, it's kind of, you have to accommodate that.
All right. Well, Mark, in your world, when you push go, does that whole 4th of July sequence happen on its pre-programmed path?
We do have displays that are choreographed to music or choreographed computer fired. But on the 4th of July, we have so many displays and only so many computer systems that the vast majority are not computer controlled. The big displays that you see broadcast nationally, those would all be normally choreographed, though, computer fired.
Our next question here is for all of you, and it's coming from Jack. Jack is asking, what substitutes are there for explosives that the special effects industry uses? For example, blowing up cars in the movies. So let's obviously start with Taz, who's coming to us from Hollywood.
Well, I'm not sure I entirely understand the question. There is no substitute for black powder. Black powder works great, as has been mentioned by Mark. It's been around for centuries, and it still does exactly what it always did, which is very useful for us since it's very visual, but it doesn't have a lot of bite, as I mentioned in my video. The attraction to it is it's easy to control and it works well. And over the decades, people have tried to put newfangled things in its place, and some of them have a limited application, but the core business still works off black powder for that reason. It's safe, it's the devil we know, and it looks great.
Our next question is another one from this is from Scott, and Scott's asking for productions. Are computer graphics and visuals replacing the call for physical pyrotechnics? And I'll start with Amanda, because I know as a concert goer myself, I'm seeing a lot more LED screens and flashy graphics. Are you seeing that there's any changes to your industry as a result of that?
Yes, it's very expensive having live pyrotechnics. And I think it's very difficult getting the permits. And I see also that they are using more graphic on video screens to give the effect that, or hopefully give the effect that you would have from a live pyrotechnic show.
So is there anything you're doing in your industry to change that, Amanda, to get stage approximate pyrotechnics back front and center?
Well, one thing, we are trying to train more younger people who would be interested in going out on tour, which sometimes you can be gone for 9 months at a time. It's very difficult to commit to that kind of situation. And the younger people think they're very interested, but when they find out what it's really like, they're less interested.
How about you, Taz? Is CG or computer graphics having an impact on physical pyrotechnic use in special effects?
That's another thing I'm used to answering. And the answer is yes, but positively. There are a lot of things in special effects that you can touch up and erase with CG effects. For example, instead of having to bury a dozen mortars, you can simply put them on the surface and erase them before they fire. And that's huge time savings. I've dug a lot of holes that I would just assume not have to dig again. So there's that aspect of it. In terms of actually creating effect, as I mentioned, there's nothing that beats explosives. I could give you a dozen reasons why CGI isn't replacing it and is unlikely to, but the main one is the CG effect isn't really there. The coolest thing in the world is when something blows up and the people run and the stuff falls down and it looks fantastic right there on the camera, as opposed to saying, okay, now something's going to blow up over there, so I want you to look scared. That's just not the same thing. It's the difference between decaf coffee and espresso. And sometimes you want decaf, but more often than not, if you want espresso, you want espresso. And that's the same thing. You want to blow something up, you want to see it blow up. And that's the bottom line. So I don't see a problem going forward.
All right, thanks, Taz. Our next question is again from Scott, and Scott is asking this of Amanda. How are indoor pyrotechnics regulated for metals in the smokes?
Well, the main thing to keep in mind is we use very finely screened particle sizes in proximate pyrotechnics so that they burn out quickly. I'm not quite sure what else I could say about that.
Are there special ventilation systems required in these facilities if you're using effects with higher smoke production?
Yes, and this is all part of the pre-show walkthrough and discussion with the facilities engineer about the system, the air changing system, and when it can be turned on. And sometimes you have to have it turned off at a certain time, and then you have to kill the fire alarms temporarily. And then when that's over, you can hit the air system and suck all that smoke out quickly.
All right, thanks, Amanda. Our next question is for Mark. And this question is coming to you, and it's, why are so many pyrotechnics manufactured overseas?
Well, the regulation and labor costs, those are the two biggest reasons right there. It's very difficult to manufacture under today's current regulations here for everything from handling waste to hazardous materials here in the United States.
So is that the same thing for you, Amanda? Are you seeing that the manufacturing is overseas, or is it closer to home?
It's absolutely in the USA. There is one manufacturer in the UK. I think more and more there are some, let's say, less quality proximate items coming out of China. However, I personally only work with the US manufacturers and that one manufacturer in the UK due to the quality of their products.
Sure. Now Taz, you're in Hollywood. Are you procuring materials from overseas? Are you building them here at home?
You know, our folks tend to use whatever they need from wherever they can get it, frankly stated. A lot of it is drawn from other industries, including the proximate fireworks business, but a lot of it is explosives of one kind or another. And it's, again, the same problem regionally, regulation wise. It's often better and easier to get whatever it is you need from nearby as opposed to trying to ship it because of all the costs and the tie-ups and so forth. There are some specialized things which you will need, which you can't get everywhere, but oftentimes there are regional manufacturers for that kind of thing, and you just need to think ahead and plan in advance. So it really depends on what it is you want and who makes it the best.
Okay. Our next question is for all three of you, and it comes from Fred, Minnesota. I'll start with Taz. How much does one of these movie explosions cost? And then I'll ask Mark what a fireworks display might cost, and Amanda what it might cost to put on a rock show.
Well, that's really hard to say. That's like saying, you know, how many pancakes does it take to cover a doghouse, or how big is a sandwich? Well, it really depends on what it is. Some are, you know, a few $100s. It's not necessarily brutally expensive. But on the other hand, if you want to do a whole ton of stuff, then it will be. The other thing to remember is it's not just the explosion, it's the preparation that you're paying for in a lot of these cases, where there may be days or weeks or even months of preparation, testing, building breakaways, installing them, all that kind of thing ahead of time to get just a few seconds of actual screen time. So that's very difficult to quantify. They don't necessarily have to be expensive, but they certainly can be.
Mark, what does a typical fireworks display cost?
So that's another open-ended question, but the simple answer would be you can use a math of somewhere between $750 to $2,000 per minute. I know that's a wide range, but it kind of gives you a ballpark guess. A lot of that depends on where you're at and what your expectations are. If you're in a barge in the middle of a river and you've got a half a mile to your audience, you need big fireworks. It's going to cost a lot more per minute. If you're shooting for a homecoming display and you're on the other side of the football field, you're scaled back. So there's a big range.
And how about you, Amanda?
Oh, you're asking hard questions here. You know, one of the things that I was really shocked about here in California is the cost of the permits. I mean, you can easily pay $800 or more for one show, just the permitting. So I think, let's assume we're not in California, but anywhere between $1,000 and maybe $35,000. I know KISS just spent a tremendous amount on a show in Dubai, but I think a lot of that was aerial. Did you see that, Mark?
I did not.
Yeah.
It'd be worth going to a KISS concert, I guess. All right, we are just now out of time. So I really want to thank all of you for being panelists here this evening. Mark and Amanda and Taz, thanks so much for really being a part of putting this all together and helping folks understand what we do with explosives and entertainment.
So thanks, Travis, and thank you for watching this episode of the ISEE Explosives Everyday series. Explosives are the ultimate power tool that help mine the minerals and materials that are used in creating many of the products and roadways we use each and every day. They help keep our towns and cities safe from avalanches. They are used to shape and improve the environment, and also military and demolition applications. And they're in some of our favourite TV shows, movies, sporting events and concerts. Our job as professionals in the explosive industry and at the ISEE is to ensure explosives continue to be handled and applied in the safest way possible, and to continue to provide the resources and tools needed to help advance the science and art of explosive engineering. If you're interested in finding out more about the International Society of Explosive Engineers, please go to our website, isee.org. You'll find information about membership, our chapters around the world, and other useful links, including a calendar of upcoming events, as well as conferences and meetings in our industry. Another great resource is the World of Explosives, where you can find information on using explosives safely, the most frequently asked questions from homeowners about blasting, how blast vibrations affect structures, and all the planning that goes into each blast. It's also home to Explosives the Power Tool. This is a video series covering the history of explosives and the technical advancements that have been made possible because of them. To check it out, visit explosives.org. So once again, a special thank you to this episode's sponsors: LDE Global, Dyno Nobel, OPIT Blast, Texel, Sigicom, and to all our sponsors throughout this series. Before we go, here are a few short words from one of our series partners, LDE Global.
The ownership group of LDE Global has been developing, patenting and supplying explosives internationally for 50 years. In 1999, following invitations and support from international mining groups, LDE entered the North American explosives market with a range of low-density, low-shock explosives known as hybrid explosives. These are ideally suited for the huge variation of rock types and mining methods across the United States. As a completely independent supplier of explosive products, technologies, equipment and consulting services, we'd like to say thank you for watching and feel free to call us at any time.
You have to be very quiet and gentle. You are building a new subway and you don't want anyone to notice. It's a surprise. That's why you have monitors that pick up on everything. You monitor and measure vibration, air blast, noise, dust. Nothing escapes you. You can be halfway around the world, and you still would notice every minor change here, right when it happens. People nearby don't notice anything, but you do. You make adjustments, so even less will be noticed in the next blast. What was that? A plane flying overhead? Small children playing. They're having fun. You blow up more of the rock, deep below the playground. Gently, quietly. It's a surprise after all. People appreciate you most when they can't see, hear, or feel you. The monitors show nothing. And that is everything. Infra, remote monitoring of construction sites. From Sigicom.
So that's it for this episode of Explosives Every Day. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube, Facebook and LinkedIn pages to stay up to date with all the latest ISEE happenings. And be sure to check out all 10 of our episodes highlighting the different ways explosives are used around the world every day. On behalf of the ISEE, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.